If you want to be in my podcast,
You gotta get with my friends. Chicken is too easy.
Podcasting never ends.
Hey everybody, welcome to the
beautiful.
Tin Pan Podcast. This is now our 15th episode overall.
Yes.
Holy shit! Not counting the 5 that we recorded that we never released.
Hey! You don't talk about this. You don't talk about this.
Hey, that will be on our Criterion collection.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Those are the
Special
four
release.
times.
Yes.
Love it. Special release. Welcome to Tin Pan Podcast, recorded here at the Tin Pan Theater in Bend, Oregon. My name's Todd Leiser.
I'm Jared Rassick.
I'm Julie Furness.
And this is, of course, the podcast where we talk about the movies playing at Tin Pan or our special events through BendFilm. Today, we're going to be talking about Paris is Burning, which is our first movie that we are playing. It's a part of our Out in Focus series in the alleyway. It's a collaboration between BendFilm Tin Pan and Out Central Oregon. Great friends of ours. We're really happy to be collaborating with them on this series. It's something we've been talking about for a while. This movie is going to play in the alleyway on Wednesday. Oh gosh,
16th.
the 16th of June. It's going to be the inaugural film in this series, which we plan to do throughout June, July, and I think into August as well. So there'll be several films coming up. We're already actually sold out for this first one, which is pretty
That's
cool.
awesome.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
I will
great.
say.
Yeah, we're really excited about that. Really
Yeah.
excited.
Very cool. We're gonna get into a conversation about Paris is Burning, the seminal documentary about Dragon Ball culture in New York City in the late 80s. And then we're also going to just kind of do a discussion talking about some of our favorite LGBTQ movies from sort of like the larger canon of queer cinema, because this conversation will definitely fall in line with the kind of movies that we're going to be playing in the alley as a part of this series. And so I'm sure that some of the ones we mentioned will probably show up this summer in this series. Because there's a lot of classics that sometimes I think when we think about LGBTQ movies and queer cinema, there's a good handful that usually pop up every now and then.
For
that
sure.
Everyone thinks
And
about.
there's a ton of these movies, but we don't have the time to show them all.
Right,
Unfortunately,
right.
there's just ones that pop out, that we're like, oh, we've got to show that one. And then there's a lot that get put by the wayside, and hopefully they get shown. I mean, there's a ton on Netflix, a ton on HBO, a ton on Stars. They're everywhere. So even on Disney.
Yep.
Disney Plus has a Pride section, and it's great. So
What's funny about talking about these kind of movies is how I think sometimes a lot of people, if they're not really familiar with a lot of LGBTQ movies or queer cinema, that sometimes the most famous ones or like the Oscar-y ones are the real dark movies.
Right.
And that is definitely just a fraction of the canon.
sure,
because
yeah, absolutely.
a lot of the ones that I think are most celebrated are just some of the either goofiest or just very much in line with drag as being or other parts of queer culture, where there are movies that are very comfortable with being kitsch or with being camp, and these kind of movies I think are sometimes the ones that really get talked about more often than not.
Well,
Yeah. It's almost like the inverse of black cinema, where it's like black cinema is like, oh, it doesn't get noticed by the Academy or by awards unless it's like black pain and suffering. But for some reason it's easier for like the goofiness or the campiness of queer cinema to get celebrated more than
it gets celebrated I think in the community, but still sometimes the mainstream cinema and mainstream awards areas really do still recognize like that they want to see queer trauma rather than
right
celebration of
Well,
queer.
yeah.
for every
or like-
birdcage there's a Brokeback Mountain.
Well,
I guess?
yeah.
or a Boys Don't Cry.
Or Boys Don't Cry.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
again, it's one of those things where
Oh.
it can be kind of hard to square that circle, because one wants to recognize that like it's a really important movie, but you also don't want that kind of movie to necessarily have to define the entire genre
Right,
or the
right,
entire
Right. And this, we're going to talk about a documentary. So
Right.
a documentary, totally different than, a feature because it's real,
Definitely. Yeah, I think, the fact that this documentary, Paris is Burning, is one that is often mentioned in the canon of LGBTQ movies. The fact that it's a documentary, it's the kind of thing that it's important for, or it feels important for the light it shed on the community at the time,
Right.
and the foundations of a lot of queer culture that has led to now. But because it is a documentary, it definitely is a different tone than you're going to usually get
For
with
sure.
more
Right.
narrative.
So we're talking about the 80s in New York City.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
First of all, what type of camera do you think this was shot on?
This has got to be like 16 millimeter.
I thought it was 16. Yeah.
16 millimeter?
Yeah.
That's my guess.
Okay. Like they actually walked around with a 16
With a
millimeter
yeah,
cap.
totally.
You know?
Yeah,
I mean, maybe it was Super 8. Honestly,
it could. Yeah, it did look like there were moments that were grainier than others.
Okay.
It could have been both.
One thing I will say, I think we're lucky to be watching this movie now, because when I watched it last night, and I'm pretty sure we'll be showing the same version in the alleyway. This movie is now a Criterion release.
Right.
It is.
Right.
So
What
because
I
of that,
watched, I watched the Criterion release.
I did too, and so it looks beautiful.
Mhm.
Right. Right.
I
Well,
can
it looks
imagine.
like 1980s New York.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
Right,
It's
right.
supposed to be grainy. It's supposed to be bright. It's
Right,
supposed
right.
to be old. I mean, but the editing was great.
Came out in 90, right?
1990, yeah.
1990,
90,
sorry,
okay,
but it
yeah.
was
It was
about-
But it was
made
shot
from-
in the 80s.
from
yeah.
85 to I think about 80.
Yeah,
88,
she said.
yeah.
I think she shot it over 6 years.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I was reading.
Yeah.
years?
Yeah, it took her 6 years to film.
Which
Wow.
makes sense. I mean, to document and interview so many queens and those who were involved in ball culture in New York City at the time, it makes sense to really have a large time period to cover.
Absolutely.
To really get a good
And
sense of the culture at the time.
while I loved it, there was one of the issues I had was I want to know where these people are now.
Right.
I really, really wanted to know who they were. I didn't get to know the people, the characters,
Yeah.
so to speak. I didn't get to know them as much as I wanted to. And I
Right,
feel
right.
like in a documentary, for me to be really, really, really involved, I like closure too.
Yeah.
So,
Sure.
I did a little bit of research after I watched it, and from what I understand, I think about 90 to 95% of the people that are in that movie are dead now.
Okay.
Which
was it
which
because
does
of
make
HIV?
sense.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Yeah, the context to always consider that the movie definitely does touch on AIDS
Oh yeah.
throughout the movie,
Yeah.
but it's not a big thing, but it's obviously a part of the context.
It is
Right,
part of the
right.
context.
The culture of this movie.
I tried not to think about it. I was like, because I watched like Queen. When the Queen, I've watched a ton of documentaries on Queen. And,
Yeah.
Freddie Mercury, and
Yeah.
it just some of the careless behavior. But it was really overshadowed by this underground kind of culture that was going on, and I wanted to know everything. They had their own language. They
Yeah.
had their own.
I mean, it's interesting that you're talking about this idea of wanting to know a little bit more, and I think reminding oneself that I think when this movie came out, most people would have never known anything about this culture, and so this was like the one piece of media that really shone a light on a particular section of culture that most people, at least mainstream culture, really knew nothing about.
Right.
No.
I can't even because it's hard. It's still hard for me to wrap my brain around the fact that 1990 was over 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So like thinking about how much acceptance and understanding has come just in the last 5 years.
Really.
Think about 30 years ago when it was like I'm watching. I have trouble sleeping at night, and my go-to show that puts me out in 30 seconds is old episodes of NCIS, and the way that they talk about homosexuality in that show, which is
Right.
12 years old, is caveman.
Oh,
It's
totally.
literally it's just insane. So I'm like for this movie to have come out 30 years ago, it's like no, it was perfectly definitely a product of its time and came out at the exact right time, but also was quite a bit ahead of its time, especially for it to be a documentary on the subject.
Really, really. So also something I didn't get to was, it came out in 1990, but was it on the festival circuit at that time?
It definitely was on the festival.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
right.
it premiered at one or two places before. I think its Sundance premiere was like its third or fourth premiere.
Okay. All right.
And so I think this probably, the amount of art house cinemas this probably played was a pretty small number relatively to other documentaries or festival documentaries. So I'm sure the amount of cinemas that it played at around the country during the 90s was pretty small.
Pretty small.
They were
right?
it was probably mostly New York. Honestly,
yeah.
But even then, half those theaters were porn theaters. So, it was even a smaller amount in New York then than it would be now, probably.
Yeah.
Also, for me personally, I do have to admit, so this is my first time seeing this movie, and as someone who considers myself a queer person, this was one that I always meant to get to and sort of felt bad that I hadn't got around to it. And so I was very glad to finally to get an understanding of the way that ball culture has been such a foundation to queer culture in general and drag culture and gay culture. But it was also very illuminating, or it reminded me that I think because I'm a West Coast kid, there's that reminder of how much there is a New York sensibility, I think, to a lot of early drag culture.
Okay. Like very showy, very like Broadway-ish, very more like that. I mean, was there not ball culture here at all in the in LA or?
I think there was, has been, and obviously still is. But I think just from this documentary and just my overall impression, I've always gotten the sense that New York City is maybe where a lot of drag culture feels centered in, and I think there's this sense that the Dragon Ball culture that has been in New York City has seemed to set a template for what most people assume it is, and so I think sometimes there's this idea that as much as it is definitely something that is going against the mainstream, it also does establish itself with its own kind of rules or its own vocabulary that if you're not a part of that, if you have grown up on the West Coast, it still can seem sort of like alien to some extent, even if you are a queer person.
Well,
but that's maybe just my personal experience.
I think it was more diversity to the East Coast drag scene too.
Sure.
And there was like more of a theatricality to it. It was more performance based, where I feel like West Coast drag in those days was more fashion based.
Okay.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, and this, I mean, let's also be real. Like 90% of the performers were black.
Oh yeah,
right.
So like this was even more central to that culture, and they didn't really even go there.
Well,
like,
I think
wasn't.
The movie definitely established itself at the beginning. There's, one or two interviews where some of the performers were saying that, like, I had to recognize very early that as a black man and a gay man, that so many doors are going to be shut off to me, and so I had to accept this,
right?
Knowing
completely.
that I want this to be the way I live and the way that I present myself. I think also it's important, again, as a white queer person, to also recognize that so much of the queer culture that I'm happy exists was also created by the work of black performers, and I do think it's important. One of the best things about watching this documentary was the reminder that black performers have really been the ones who have almost put more on the line than anyone else to make this possible.
Sure, and let's just say we don't know who the quote-unquote godfather was back then, but like RuPaul. Okay, come on. Like he is, right? Like he is the...
Definitely brought it to the mainstream in a way that I would say had never been done before.
Right?
Yeah,
I mean, what white performer? Let's go there. is the same. Can we compare to
No.
RuPaul? We cannot.
Yeah. RuPaul is definitely an extremely important individual for again for driving this culture forward and helping it grow over the last 20 years.
Yeah,
for sure.
absolutely.
One other film that I thought about was Party Monster.
Yeah.
After and that whole like club kid, kind of, but that was also very, very drag queen. That was kind of like we were talking white and black, was like the the white balls, that weren't really, they weren't winning awards for it. Like these guys, Paris is Burning, they were winning awards. Mm-hmm. They were getting accolades. Yeah, they were moving up.
They were creating their own system of competition.
100%. They were talented. They were dancers. They were singers. They were modeling,
Right.
But like Party Monster was kind of like, oh, we're just going to have fun with it. We don't care,
Right.
I mean, they put a lot of work into it, but I was like, that was also a New York scene that was very, I think, foreign to Westerners, like it was very like, ooh, I mean, everything we see happening, everything we have seen and see in New York happening, we just look afar from here.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
yeah.
We're just I'm so jealous, sometimes. Like, why? It's just different. It's just.
Yeah. Party Monster is like the white privilege version.
It is.
Of
Paris is Burning.
That's what I was thinking.
That's what I wanted to say. It is the white privilege version of it, right?
They have less that they're putting on the line than the performers.
They never got in trouble until the end.
Yeah, their money's bottomless. Like they don't have to worry about.
Drugs are bottomless.
Yeah,
they just did whatever they wanted. Like, and it's like, no, these guys worked. Men and women worked hard.
Yeah, one thing I think also that this reminds me that I appreciate about Paris is Burning is how much it really lets so many of the performers who are being interviewed to really just speak their own stories. Sometimes, every now and then, I get a little annoyed if there sometimes isn't a narrator to a documentary, but sometimes it's really important. I think the fact that there isn't really a narrator to this documentary, like shaping the story, it really is just like you're getting the personal experiences directly from these folks' mouths. Like that, I think is really important to humanize them.
Yeah, it's a different way of filmmaking.
I almost wonder if there was a narrator, if the film would have felt more sentimental than it does. It almost would have felt. I don't want to say softer, but if there was a narrator, it would have been shaped more than by allowing the people to speak for themselves. It kind of. I think the one thing, because I watched this movie literally 20 years ago, and when I was like 12 or 13, and had completely forgotten about it, and rewatching it last night, the thing that I noticed was that it has almost this lyrical quality to it that I didn't really remember, where it feels like, because the way that she follows these performers that it felt like it came in waves. You know what I mean? Like it was hard for me to. It doesn't have like a structure in a way that makes it predictable. You watch it and you're like, oh, this documentary could literally go anywhere, in any scene,
And then there's the modeling stuff at the end, where, the one woman, the one dancer performer, she's there. Mm-hmm. She wants to be a model. She said she wanted to be a model, and then it cuts off.
Right.
And then you're like, wait, what happened to her? Like, did she make it to another round? Like, where? I mean,
there's a lot of moments like that where so many of these characters are talking about the different avenues that they have considered pursuing,
right?
Because, again, there's a great conversation in this movie from so many folks who are being interviewed talking about, like, do I consider myself just a man who dresses a woman, or do I fully want to commit to being a woman, or do I want to be more of a model?
Do I keep my day job?
Right. Is this my life?
Yeah, what kind of look do I want to take on? Like, do I want to be more of a model? Do I want to be more of an actress? And like, there's all these. It is really just like a lot of people having like being not really sure, but knowing they want something.
Yeah, and like they just kind of like I wanted to know, like, who they, like I said, going back to, I wanted to know who they were, what they did, how they got into it, how could, because they said a lot of them were runaways,
Totally.
So where were they living? How did they eat? How did
Right,
they
right, right.
afford, New York City?
Yeah, I
I
mean,
mean, I don't know what it was like to live. I mean, but should I assume that they lived on the streets and then they
right.
came to perform? I
there
just
there was
I
there,
don't.
there was there was a little bit of breadcrumbs throughout the movie showing how the houses that were established were offering refuge to a lot of
Okay.
people who
Okay.
either had run away from home or weren't
Okay.
didn't have their supports or
Is
didn't
it-
have a support system, and now we're funding new support systems.
Okay.
Because there were some people who would be interviewed on camera and say like, I don't I don't have a
I don't have parents.
Parents
I
or
don't
something
have,
like
I
that,
live
yeah.
with a friend,
Right,
and I.
right.
Yeah,
I
I was
mean,
also I was
it's
thinking
sad.
about while watching this movie. I recently watched Summer of Sam, the Spike Lee movie, which I think takes place right around the same
Yes,
time.
right
Oh,
around
yeah.
there.
Yep.
And I was also thinking about how a couple years ago I read the Beastie Boys memoir, and they're also talking about how they came of they started their career right around that same time in the mid '80s, and
Right.
just this reminder of the way that New York City was just grimy and people
You saw-
Dangerous.
were just
It was-
transient.
yeah,
We saw
yeah,
the
it was
streets, right? I
dangerous.
mean,
Yeah.
some of the streets in New York are still like that. In fact, when you see the trash pile up on some of these, some of the apartment buildings and things like that, it's out of control. It's
Right,
insane.
right,
Of course, now after the pandemic, the homeless situation is even worse.
right. It's much worse.
I mean, also, thanks to Rudy Giuliani for cleaning up the set.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, thank you, Rudy, for all you did, starting with 9/11.
Yeah.
But
God,
man,
that
I'm
man.
they're interviewing right next to a trash
Right,
can, trash
right,
dump,
right,
and I'm
right.
like, oh my god,
Yeah.
before recycling started.
Right, but
this
yeah,
was
before
like
recycling.
any of that, But man, I really wanted to know more about these
Yeah.
the characters, the people themselves. I mean, and in a documentary, if I don't get closure, I just I look at a documentary two ways: the way it's made and the content. If I don't get engaged in the first 30 minutes, I'm done, and I have shut down a lot of documentaries.
Sure.
But I need to be engaged because I want to know. I want to know, and sometimes we've got this true crime obsession going on right now
Right.
in America.
Right.
And it's kind of sickening, but it's like you're involved,
Right,
you
right.
know.
But it's also in that way, it's also similar to how documentaries would come out in the 80s. Our modern true crime obsession has a much shorter attention span than I think people who watch documentaries and people who cared about learning things did back in the 80s and 90s. When is the last time you heard somebody talk about Tiger King? And there was a 2-month period where that is every day it was somebody talking about Tiger King, or the staircase, or Robert Durst, or you know what I mean. We want the stories, but we don't want the stories to affect us for longer than a news cycle, basically.
Right. What do we think of as a classic documentary?
A classic documentary.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so when I started the Tin Pan, we were showing let's talk about some of the ones that we've shown here. So the one about the triplets.
Yeah, Three Identical Strangers.
3 Identical Strangers. Okay. That was so well done.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
that was the combo of a fascinating story and a really well made documentary.
Yes. Okay. And then we showed RBG. Incredible.
Mhm.
Okay. Hell Satan. Incredible.
Yeah.
Okay. So those I can just throw out immediately.
Totally.
Now the ones like Tiger King. Now those are series. Netflix really
Right.
that wasn't their first really good one, but it was damn good. Okay.
Right.
And that's why we're still talking about it, because we're that was when the pandemic started. I saw a quote, on Facebook a couple months ago, and they're like, I really missed the Tiger King / stimulus check part of the pandemic.
Yeah,
right now.
I saw that one, and it was
You know?
because I remember being nervous every night like going to bed being like, is my throat tickling?
I
Like,
know. Remember when that was when we were really shut in.
yeah, well, when it was
Really
literal,
shut in.
when it was literal quarantine.
Yeah.
And like, I feel like Tiger King was honestly the first time where I was like, oh, I got to watch something and not think about being nervous.
Oh,
like that literally made
totally.
my brain.
Yes.
That made my brain go somewhere else for a while.
And we all had something in common to talk about,
Sure.
and it was like, I don't know. And I just felt like Netflix really, they did such a good job. Not just the content, because the content was sketchy, but the way it was done.
Yeah.
And I thought that, I don't know.
To sort of bring this back to Paris is Burning, I'm thinking about like some of the elements we're sort of talking about here are like a fascinating story or a world we've never seen before, and also like the humanizing of people.
Right.
And I do think for sure Paris is Burning definitely humanizes its characters and is definitely a world that most people have never seen before.
Right.
Could it be a series?
I mean,
oh God, yeah.
I mean, essentially that's what Pose is.
That's what Pose is.
I was just gonna say, is that what
Yeah, Pose is the New York houses. Like
okay.
yeah. So I was gonna bring up the difference kind of between Pose and Paris is Burning is that it's almost like Pose took your criticism about Paris is Burning, because I'm mildly obsessed with American Horror Story, and on American Horror Story I discovered Billy Porter, and then Billy Porter is one of the main characters on Pose, so I just kind of followed him over, and then within an episode and a half I was like, well shit, I'm gonna watch every single episode of this. And the thing that show does so well, and it's also what some of the best documentaries do well, is it gives you the story that you're fascinated by, but also completely puts you in the head of every single character. So you feel like you know them inside and out. Because like when you have that combination in a documentary of, oh my God, I care about these people, and oh my God, what's going to happen to them based on the story, that's when you're like hitting that sweet spot that not a lot of documentaries really hit. Like when we talked about Some Kind of Wonderful, Some Kind of Heaven on here. That was kind of the perfect combination of like, I kind of know these characters inside and out.
Oh yeah.
And also, oh my God, this is so sad. What's going to happen to them?
Can this please end, because I'm over it?
Yeah.
Okay, feel sorry for you, I guess, or I don't know. That was another white privilege one.
So, for sure.
But
how do we think people are gonna respond? I mean, I do know that there's gonna be a lot of people that are gonna be super excited to watch this movie in the alleyway. So maybe
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think if we could just blast Madonna's Vogue out there before, just inside here, blast it.
Sure.
Which, by the way, everyone thought she invented voguing. She did not.
No.
She did not.
Oh, it turns out a white performer is
Yeah.
in the tradition of
I
the
wonder-
Beatles, taking black music.
Yes. Where did you get voguing? Well, I know who. I know where. In the houses. Yep. There you go.
Yeah, I think this is going to be really great that we're starting off this series with this movie. I really do want to give a shout out to Janet Wilshire for helping curate this series and suggesting this one.
Yep. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we are already sold out, but if you happen to grab a table at San Simone, you can still watch the movie, and we just ask that you throw us a few bucks for donation, and we'll appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely.
We are doing our best to get some good ones out there this summer.
Yeah.
So.
You still get a pretty damn good view from San Simone.
Yeah.
So
definitely do.
It does make sense to definitely donate.
Yeah. So yeah, let's open up this conversation a little bit more and just thinking about the canon of LGBTQ movies. We've talked a little bit about just as we were putting this series together, just some of the other ones that are often in this conversation. It's things like Hedwig and the Angry Itch or Priscilla, Queen in the Desert. Also, I mean, the fact that the second movie we're showing, Wizard of Oz, is definitely one that I often forget about. But again, talking with some of my friends recently, there was the reminder of like, Julie Garland was one of like the big first advocates for.
Is that why? Like, I want to.
Yes.
Yeah. She was, as far as I can tell, she was the first gay icon. Like that I can think of anyway.
Is it
or gay ally, I
because?
guess.
Yeah, but I mean, she's definitely an icon
she's an icon.
now.
Ally and then became
and then
an icon.
Yeah.
Was it because she was like not easy, but was it because easy to emulate, like
She
perform, like her songs, like what?
Yeah, I think she did personify a certain type of femininity that I think was
Okay.
maybe a lot of people looked up to.
Okay.
I think that helped a lot, and then the fact that Wizard of Oz itself was just such a seminal movie that so many people saw when they're children or became such a iconic part of Hollywood.
And I think there's something too thematically about the film that gay culture latched onto, especially with like how the first chunk of the movie is black and white and everything's boring and your life sucks.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you find Oz and everything's technicolor and beautiful and you've got friends that have your back and like it,
costumes
yeah,
and
the
everything.
whole thing.
Yeah, it's definitely a great metaphor. For acceptance or finding the culture that accepts you.
And there's
One-
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, going back to like the canon of films. One movie for me that I always like to mention, and I feel like sometimes I think most people would consider it, but just a movie that to me personally I always connect with is Ed Wood.
Yeah.
Particularly because that's about a character who is an aspiring filmmaker, but is also gender fluid and cross dresses, and that's like basically describes me exactly.
Yeah. And also that movie, because I think that was mid '90s, right?
Yep.
That it came out.
That
Was also pretty ahead of its time because it wasn't. I don't think it ever mocked that culture in that movie at all. Like
Totally.
it was
Like,
very
yeah.
like respectful and funny based on who he was as a human being, as opposed to like, oh, look at this weirdo. Like it never kind of crossed that line for me.
Definitely, yeah. Tim Burton's portrayal of Ed Wood is like the most humanized portrayal I've almost ever seen of a person in movies.
It's definitely the most human character he's ever had in one of his movies, I would say.
I would definitely agree
like,
with that.
You know.
That's a movie where Tim Burton is such as like, I'm gonna take someone who was totally underestimated or someone who people thought was a freak and a weirdo, and I'm gonna say like, hey, he's still a human being who's like worthy of.
Right.
Yeah, and he made movies
And a pioneer.
and kind
of a pioneer.
kind of a pioneer,
Mostly
and,
a pioneer. Somewhat of a pioneer.
Yeah.
Almost a pioneer.
kind of a pioneer. Tim Burton likes to shoot in black and white,
Yeah,
and he
yeah,
likes to shoot in black.
Yeah.
like
yeah,
dark stuff. So that was perfect.
And really like Tim Burton's sensibility is right in line with the sensibility of Wizard of Oz. Like his combination of gothic with picturesque suburbia, like that combo, like in
Totally. I just wish he hadn't done Alice in Wonderland. But
we wish a lot of things, but yeah, I agree.
Did he do the second one also?
No,
yeah.
that was James Bobbin.
Yeah.
It was really.
God, yes.
Oh wow.
I'm-
Okay. I think the second one was better.
Probably, I believe it.
Okay,
Yeah,
Big
I really
Fish.
do.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna go down a rabbit hole right now.
Yeah.
Big Fish is one of my favorites. Anyway,
Yeah, it's a good one.
can we talk about Tu Wong Fu?
Yes.
for a
Yeah,
second?
yeah.
Okay, so you have three kind of really like man,
Yeah.
man, you
Yeah.
know, Wesley Snipes, Patrick Swayze, John Leguizamo, right?
These
So-
guys defined like masculinity.
They really
at the time of
did.
their
Yeah,
They
yeah.
really did. Like, so what was in like even back then? Okay, so we're talking 1995. Like, do you think that they were like, yeah, I'll do this. I'll put some heels and makeup on.
Yeah.
Or was it like because they wanted to like stretch their repertoire? Do you think it was a struggle? Do you think that they were like, oh, this should be fun? I mean,
Do you think it was? Is your question like, did they do this to help their career, or did they do this because it meant something to them?
yes, let's.
That's a really
I
good
mean-
question.
It seems to me that the 90s was a time when the idea of doing like a queer movie or maybe even more simpler than that, the idea of doing a movie about someone who does drag in some form or another was kind of it was becoming a very accepted idea for a movie to be about. I think Victor Victoria was maybe that was a little bit earlier. But I should say that the idea of either men dressing as women or women dressing as men as a part of a plot line is really something that we've found as fascinating going back to William Shakespeare.
Mm-hmm.
So I think to some extent that's an idea that just we still find fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the fact that maybe during the 90s there was finally a confluence of we can make a movie about this, and also it is a real culture as well.
Absolutely.
And it sort of came together in the 90s that it
Yeah.
hadn't come to that point before.
Because
so I think
Paris is Burning, like, let's just say it, like, that start kind of really, like you said, Pose and
it
all
kind of blew
these
the
things
doors open
just,
in a way.
it did.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think a lot of actors take a chance, and I think about that with anything. You know, Brokeback Mountain, I'll never watch it again.
Yeah.
I love that movie, but I will never watch it again. That is
Yeah.
one of those that I'm putting in a.
I mean,
in a-
yeah, that's the
sealing it.
trauma side.
That's the
Yeah,
trauma
yeah,
side, where
that's
I'm like,
the boys don't cry side.
the boys don't cry.
Mhm.
And those, you know, just to get into that mindset to
Mhm.
do those films takes a
Mhm.
lot of courage.
Mhm.
Oh, so much courage.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I think there's also a lot to say about the career of like John Waters, for example. Like even though there's only maybe like one or two of his movies that are really appealing to the mainstream, like the original Hairspray is sort of like his biggest
Hairspray.
one.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Right.
And even in I feel like the queer community, there's a recognition that like John Waters' films are still usually pretty pessimistic, as much as they deal in camp. But that camp sensibility, there was still a sense of fun that was there, even though there was a lot of pessimism. And I think like that sort of thing still helps a lot in building the canon.
Right, and we really want to show Pink Flamingo. Like, we really, really, really want to show it.
That was a joke. I want to be clear. That was a joke.
Was it a joke?
It was very much a joke.
No, I put it. Okay.
No.
Okay.
Todd Libby brought it up in a meeting. I was like, oh no, I'm sorry. That was a
He
joke.
brought it
That
up
was
at
a joke.
Monday's meeting.
Oh, he did.
Yeah,
Oops.
yeah.
Well, I put it on the list.
I know because I said it, and my sarcasm over text is sometimes not that good.
Oh, darn it. Okay, I really took you seriously on that one.
Is that the one where Divine eats the poop?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
And there's a full asshole shot.
Oh, whoops.
Yeah.
Oh, we need to take that one down.
I
Okay.
remember being like a 10-year-old kid walking around my local video store and seeing on the VHS wall Lust in the Dust, which that ended up somehow being the first John Waters movie I ever saw, which is like not remotely comparable to the rest of his filmography. Like Divine in a Western is not.
Yeah.
And I think that movie kind of broke my brain as a kid.
Yeah.
And
It's always good to
Yeah.
have this.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, what's Jared Leto's
Oh,
really
no. Is that-
best drag movie?
Dallas Buyers Club. And as much as I hate Jared Leto, he's still phenomenal in that movie. Like he is.
That's why I brought it up.
But I still can't stand him. I just what? Yeah.
You're
No,
welcome.
don't get me started. Another like I think a movie that balances beautiful gay relationships with gay trauma is the movie. I think we've talked about this on the podcast before. Is A Home at the End of the World.
Oh yeah.
And that's a poly relationship between Colin Farrell, Dallas Roberts, and Robin Wright. And watching the three of them slowly fall in love over this movie is like one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life. And Colin Farrell's never been better. Dallas Roberts has never been given a better role. And Robin Wright is just heartbreaking.
Well, she's amazing.
But yeah, that's kind of like any time. But also, I haven't watched that movie in like 10 years, and I'm really curious whether it still stands up. But like that was my movie where I could throw that on if I needed a good like ugly cry, and within an hour.
What about My Own Private Idaho?
Oh, I haven't seen that in a long time either. Like I would imagine Gus Van Sant doesn't screw around, so I would imagine that still stands up pretty well.
I think we should watch it.
Yeah, we really should.
Now that's where Keanu Reeves and River Phoenix solidified their
Bestie
friendship.
friendship,
And like they were already, I mean, River was gonna take risks no matter what.
Right.
Keanu, he was
Yeah.
Keanu.
yeah.
It's before Bill and Ted.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Way
Way
before.
before
Yeah.
Bill
Way
and
before.
Ted. Oh,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, before Bill and Ted.
I think My Own Private Idaho was 86 or 87.
Mhm.
Yeah, Bill and Ted 89.
Yeah.
Yep. So that one,
Yeah.
91.
90. My Own Private Idaho's 91. Wow. So when was Bill and Ted?
89.
89.
So it was
really?
after Bill
was
and Ted.
after?
Oh, okay, yeah. That makes sense. I thought so. Yeah,
Okay.
Wow.
yeah. Bill and Ted would have been beforehand.
Okay.
I feel I
Well-
didn't think Reeves was that big making My Own Private Idaho as he was during. So then when's Point Break? 92? 91?
Which I just watched
something like that.
recently.
Yeah.
Um,
Damn. Okay. He's had an interesting career.
he really has, and that's kind of what I want to like talk about too. So Billy Porter, going back to Billy Porter, like he's a performer. Like he knows, he
Absolutely.
can sing, he can dance, he can do it all. I mean, but so straight male actors playing gay men, okay? It doesn't really go the other way around, okay? Or tell me when it has gone the other way.
Neil Patrick Harris.
A gay man playing a straight man?
Yeah, he did
Who?
8 seasons of How I Met Your Mother is the straightest guy on that
It
show.
is.
That's true.
Yeah, that's true. He was.
And what's crazy is even because yes, especially when people find out an actor who's playing a straight role is gay in real life, that tends to affect their careers. Like I've noticed when Matthew Bomer came out, he's gotten almost primarily gay roles since he came out.
After Magic Mike. Or
After White Collar,
White
after
Collar.
his
Oh,
show,
yeah,
because
okay.
I think he came out in the last season or two of White Collar, and then it was like Magic Mike, and then all of the stuff on American Horror Story.
Yeah, that's sort of the history of what kind of roles or the history of straight or gay actors playing straight or gay roles. The fact that for the longest time, a lot of gay actors have not felt comfortable to be public, and so they have played straight roles because it's assumed that they are straight actors.
Okay.
And so for a long time, I think there's a notion or an understanding from a lot of actors knowing that like if I publicly come out, then the industry will assume that I'm only going to play gay roles,
True.
and there will be doors
True.
closed off.
And Doogie Howser, he was like, well, whatever, like
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
like one example that I think of, like whenever I forgot that Nathan Lane didn't come out until like 99 or 2000, which is kind of. Or no, maybe it was earlier. Maybe it's 89.
But like after the Birdcage, he came out.
I think he was out when the Birdcage.
Oh,
I hate to say it was pretty obvious, but
Yeah,
I hate to say that.
yeah.
But yeah, like there was a sensibility, and so I think when more and more like gay actors come out, there is a hope that like they don't want to just have to only play gay roles from now. Like they want the opportunity to still play any type of people.
Okay.
But I can and then there's also the frustration sometimes of straight actors being the ones who primarily get like sometimes the juiciest gay role.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
they call Hugh Jackman the gayest straight man.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's a really interesting point. Is that in a way, straight actors get to play way juicier gay
That's
roles
what I'm
than gay
saying. It
actors
doesn't-
do. That's
yeah.
amazing.
It-
I never thought about that.
And when we're talking about white privilege,
yeah.
and we can go even white male privilege,
Right.
Totally.
okay?
Now straight
That-
white male privilege.
Privilege, thank you.
Yeah,
Straight
yeah,
white
yeah.
male privilege. That's what I'm
Yeah,
talking about.
totally. That's
Because
crazy.
it doesn't go the other way around. And I
Right,
think
right.
that's why Doogie Howser, who comes to Bend a lot, actually, by the way.
He does, yeah.
Yeah,
Ooh.
to visit. Does it.
Yeah.
I think he does it because he's like, no, I can do this.
Right,
you know?
right.
And like Harold and Kumar, I'm sorry, he's so
Yeah,
funny.
Oh, yeah.
hysterical.
Uh,
I think Ian McKellen has also managed to not ever get typecast. Really, I mean,
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I didn't know he was gay until I think like Return of the King came out. Like
I think I was the same way. Yeah.
yeah, and I was just like, oh, like
I think he'd come out maybe in the 80s or 90s.
yeah, he'd been out for a long time.
yeah.
Here's my question: how do you think Elliot Page's career is going to be different now?
I mean, luckily they've
Good
got
question.
the support of Netflix.
Right,
which
but I mean
helps.
post
Post transition.
the series that he's on.
Umbrella Academy.
Yeah,
Okay.
post Umbrella Academy. Do you think they're gonna have the same like
I think she's
ro-
gonna have. Is gonna have to
roles
work
like
harder.
but look at roles like Inception. I'm wondering if they can still.
Well, actually, you know what was interesting is I remember probably post Inception, Elliot Page made a pretty conscious choice to not act in as many movies. And,
yeah,
like,
absolutely.
he even had that series on Viceland where like he was going around all over the world and just like I think the series was called Gaycation.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so like Elliot Page's activism has obviously taken a front seat
Right.
to his
I
acting
think
career.
so, yeah, and possibly.
true. That's very
I
true.
think I've read that he wants to write and produce.
Oh,
yeah.
more,
Yeah.
So
Because he
Um,
came out as queer
Yeah.
around the time of Inception.
Yeah. First Elliot came out as gay,
As-
and
yeah.
then and then
And then
well, because
yeah.
Ellen was married, right? Was Ellen married or had a girlfriend?
talking about the talk show host, or are we talking about Elliot?
Before Elliot.
Okay.
I thought Ellen was married. I thought Ellen Page. Ellen
Yeah.
was
Um,
was she married?
I
I
don't-
think
Had a girlfriend?
they had a partner.
Partner.
But
Okay.
Yeah, I think that part. I don't
Okay.
remember if it was a man or a woman though.
Okay, I can't.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I don't ever remember Ellen they having a girlfriend or
I
boyfriend.
don't
It's
either.
weird.
I think in those days they were pretty private about their private life,
Relations.
honestly. But I'm curious to see after Umbrella Academy ends, if Hollywood will take the chance and give them
I
like
hope so.
the same kind of roles they were getting, pre transition. Like,
my
I'm very
assumption
curious.
is that he's been pretty disillusioned with Hollywood.
I would
and
imagine.
it's like he's like, yeah, I'm an activist now, and like
yeah.
I'm not. Hollywood has treated me like shit, and so I'm
Right.
not gonna.
He'll just start writing their own roles.
Yeah,
Just like, okay,
So,
this is what I'm gonna go after.
IMDb has officially changed the page to Elliot Page.
Okay.
Okay.
I remember
And-
Netflix
So
made a big
Wikipedia.
announcement that like they were
Yep.
going back through all
Yep.
his credits and changing it too.
Yep, and there are 3 things on the block. Okay, Naya, Legend of the Golden Dolphin. Now this is voice. I know that also
Voice
he
work.
said he was going to be doing some voice work. RoboDog, and then there's an animated series. So it's looking like she's writing, doing a lot of voice work, and producing as well. But like you said, there was a huge break there. Like Tales of the City. I don't even remember that.
Oh. My grandma recorded every single episode ever of Tales from the City. That was a TV show in the 80s and 90s that was about queer culture, I believe in San Francisco.
Okay.
And now they either just did a remake of it
2019.
or they just but every episode it's an anthology show, and every single episode is like a different kind of relationship of a queer culture in the Bay Area. It's amazing. It's his name's Amistad Maupin, I think, or something like that. The writer who kind of came up with the idea, and it's gorgeous. That is honestly the first, aside from Queer as Folk, like that was one of the first queer shows where I was like, that changed my empathy level and my understanding as a human being towards queer culture.
Isn't
was
that great?
Tales of the City, yeah. And
Well-
it was my grandma giving me VHS tapes of like 2 or 3 episodes recorded on each VHS tape. Like,
Nice.
watch this.
Nice.
It was, yeah. My grandma was pretty baller.
That's cool.
Let's talk about gay directors for a second. Gay queer directors for a second, and let's talk about their careers.
So we got what? Gus Van Sant.
Um,
Let's see how
Let's
good
see.
my knowledge
Yep.
is. Pop quiz.
Pop quiz.
Todd, mention some gay directors.
Gus Van Sant.
I mean, there's one gay director I would like to not mention, if possible.
Well, Bryan Singer.
yeah,
but,
that was the one.
Okay, but let's bring him up because there's a reason why we're talking about this. And let's talk about their careers. Do they have? I mean, Are they as successful as going back to the straight male white privilege or gay male white
I think
privilege?
the importance of directors who are gay or directors who are queer does mean that they are the ones who get to primarily tell the stories that they feel are important, and so you know, those individuals being in the director's chair is obviously great because it means that they're more intimately familiar with the experience of gay and queer experiences. I don't know. I mean, like, more gay and queer writers, more gay and queer directors. I don't know. I have nothing more to say than just it's all good.
It does
I
seem.
think
It
we're
does
going to
seem-
be watching. I think we're going to be seeing a lot of changes.
It does kind of
and-
seem to me like gay directors have an easier foot in the door than writers or actors do.
Okay.
Because it just seems like
Maybe they build their career in the indie space, maybe.
yeah, exactly. So they kind of enter the world already like, oh, you can make us money. We don't care what your orientation is. It's really it's
and
really
that's why
interesting.
I like and Ryan Murphy too. Let's just talk about him. I know. I know. Todd loves
I just personally dislike his style, but I have nothing against him as a human being, as a queer. I'm glad he exists in the industry. I just don't like his style.
Okay.
What specifically?
Okay, this is gonna.
He had to explain this to me last
know.
week because I made him.
Okay.
So-
I'm ready.
All of my queer and gay friends are gonna basically take away my queer card.
Okay.
I recognize that Ryan Murphy is a very good example of sort of the way that a lot of queer art has a certain style to it, and he definitely capitalizes on that style. And it's very much like in your face and bold and out there and extra, and that just gets a little long in the tooth for me. I think.
Okay, so everything's
Yeah,
at 1,000%
exactly.
every moment.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Cool.
Yeah,
I think we're about to wrap up here.
Yeah, all right. That sounds good.
This was such a good conversation.
Julie's
getting
I feel like
her
we could
headphones
go.
back on.
I feel like we could go a lot longer on this one.
Well, okay. Sorry,
I agree with you, by the way.
But
Ryan Murphy's at 1,000, but when he goes 100% instead of 1,000, it's good.
Yeah.
Like the assassination of Gianni Versace. It was like, oh, there you go.
Oh,
You can like.
and I told him to watch People versus OJ.
Yeah, which I would like to.
Yeah. Talking about documentaries that really hit the nail.
Yeah.
And I think Ryan Murphy, in my opinion, can do no wrong, except some series of American Horror Story were terrible.
And the last 3 seasons of
Glee were
Glee
awful.
were awful.
Nip Tuck,
Yeah.
oh my god.
Man, that
show.
show made me dumber. Like I was a smarter person before I watched that
I
show.
know. He is a producer on Pose though, and that's why
Yeah,
I
he
wanted
is.
to bring that up. So
I think he directs the pilot too.
yeah.
makes
So
sense, too.
and I don't know. I think he's amazing. But Bryan Singer, I just want to end this with.
Oh, great! That's where we're ending.
Great.
I am going to end this with Bryan Singer because Hollywood gave him whatever he wanted.
Yeah, multiple chances.
Multiple
You got
chances.
to fail upwards.
Yeah.
He got to fail upwards. He was given millions and millions and millions of dollars to make big movies.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And I know people who knew these about the bad things that he got in trouble for later.
Yeah.
Years ago, were
Right,
telling me this.
right.
Years ago in the industry.
Yeah.
And you know what, Bryan? I hope you never work again.
I don't think he's going to.
Sounds
I
good.
really
Ever will
don't think he's going to.
So-
I think he's done.
I think, and I hope he is.
Yeah.
All right, Ever. We promised that all the movies that we're going to play in this series
Fun,
are all going to be
fun
fun
movies. Woo!
honestly, no, that's really what we want to do. So we hope that if you want to come out and watch Paris is Burning, grab yourself a seat at San Simone because all of our other tables are sold out. And then again, Wizard
Please
of Oz.
support
is gonna
us.
be- What's that?
Please support us.
Please support us. Yeah.
Please support local.
Yeah. Eat local, buy local. I always make the joke now that last Blockbuster, you got to support local.
Gotta support local.
Wizard of Oz is going to be 2 weeks after that, and we're going to have more movies in this out in focus series. On
Pretty soon we'll have more to announce.
Oh, yeah.
Post Wizard.
Yeah.
Post Wizard of Oz.
go check out our website to see what other movies we're playing. We're opening up Super Frenchy this Friday, all about our local base jumping athlete. Which we're super excited to show. Still got all our same series that we've been doing the past month. Links will be in below for everything to check out.
And we are looking forward to Deschutes County going into low risk. Low risk means we get to open more seats.
Yep.
More seats mean we get more of you inside, which is where we like to show you movies. Yeah. Don't get us wrong. We love the alley. But we love our theater more.
Yeah.
Last night I got to show the most recent B-horror film Inside. Honestly, it was great.
Nice.
Yeah.
I bet that was so much fun.
Yeah.
It was cool.
So, bring in your takeout inside.
Yeah.
I don't care as long as you throw it away in the trash when you're done.
That'd be nice.
And purchase our wine and beer.
Which people did. People were ordering beer last night. It was great.
Yeah. So,
and please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Yeah, like, share, and subscribe.
Smash that like button.
Smash that like button. Crush it.
And read Source Weekly.
Yeah, do it.
Read Jared's reviews.
Yeah. This week I will. Or no, I guess this will. Oh, does this come out today?
This will come out in 2 days.
2 days?
Yeah.
Look at my review this week of The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, where I talk about ghosts and demons.
All right.
You'll like it.
Cool.
I rated all of the movies in the Conjuring cinematic universe from best to worst.
Our Ben's own Emily Vanderwerf basically is Jared.
I appreciate it. I appreciate that.
All right, thanks so much for listening, everybody. We thank you coming by and checking out our little podcast that we make. This is the Tin Pan Podcast, recorded out of Tin Pan Theater in Bend, Oregon.
Woo!
From Tin Pan and BendFilm.
Guys, you should see Todd's facial hair. Like the people listening to this, his facial hair is so good right now that it's literally like the micro. He keeps having to pull his head back from the microphone because it keeps catching on fire. I'm just saying.
My beard is still not as good as yours,
Jared. Dude. But my beard is a mixture of laziness and Yugoslavian blood.
Oh boy! All right, my name's Todd Leiser.
I'm Jared Rassick.
Julie.
Thanks for listening.
Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.